My religious education and inspiration came from my grandparents. The rules were very stringent. They were orthodox. We even tore toilet paper before Shabbat. I was eager to follow all the rules. And my grandfather taught me a lot. But the best thing my grandfather ever did for me was when he was my babysitter. My mother went out in the evenings often to play cards with her friends because she didn't want to be alone. So she would say to her father, "Pa, keep an eye on Rosie." He took it very literally. He lay down beside me and watched me. Well, he must have gotten bored after a while. The hat still on his head, rolling his own little cigarettes. And as a teacher, he played the violin. He loved music. He loved to compose little songs. And he made up stories and poems for his students, which they used at holiday time or other festivities at the synagogue. And as he lay there beside me, he would teach me the little songs and poems that he composed in Hebrew and Yiddish. When a child is 3 and 4 years old, they can memorize very easily. And I did. I did understand the Hebrew. I was fluent in Yiddish, living so close with my grandparents. When there was an event at the synagogue, he would take me and put me on a chair and say, "Razele, read, speak." And I'd say my piece. And I loved the feeling I got back. People were not only attentive, but they were delighted. Oh, they would say, "It's Reb Ziff's granddaughter. Isn't she cute?" Well, I thought, this is the life. This is what I want to do. I really do believe that that gave me the first inklings of wanting to be a performer. Not only that, but it gave me confidence that I could stand up in front of people and not be afraid. When I got to school, later grades, if there was ever an announcement that had to be made in the assembly, I volunteered. I knew I could do that. I was in school plays. I felt that this was my vocation. I was a speaker. When I was about the same age, and my mother would sleep in mornings, I crept out of the bedroom down to my grandmother and grandfather's apartment. That's where the action was. That's where it was fun to be. My grandmother ground her own coffee beans with a grinder that was attached to the big oak round table in the kitchen. Oh, whatever happened to that oak table if we only had them today? They weren't valued. My Aunt Esther, who was single, was getting dressed and primping to go to work in Chicago. My Aunt Tilly was cleaning the house. There were always visitors, peddlers, deliveries, gossip. I would just take it all in. It was so interesting watching the grown-ups. And I became an observer. I learned so many things that other children didn't know because I was always hanging around the grown-ups. I was the oldest grandchild. My beloved Aunt Esther had a boyfriend, Sidney. Sidney had a Buick rumble seat sedan. Well, it wasn't a sedan, I guess it was like a coupe, they called them. The back seat had a toolbox, taupe-colored velvet toolbox in the corner. Well, this boyfriend gave my cousins and me a ride sometimes when he'd come on a summer evening and we were still awake playing in the yard. And this to us was glamour. In fact, we used to play the next day. I was Esther and I would primp and Marvin was Sidney, and he'd come up in his tricycle, that was the Buick, and I would hang on, and we'd go out for a date. We were always making up games. I mean, what else was there to do? We didn't have parents guiding us for play and activities, which was, I think, much more worthwhile when I come to think of it.